All right, welcome to the Pangburn Podcast. Today I'm featuring a conversation I had with a couple in their late 30s from the United States. We talked afterlife, religion, parenting laws to penalize child indoctrination, and more. Enjoy. Basically what I'm doing today is asking people if they believe in an afterlife.
So do I believe in an afterlife? That's the question?
Yes.
I would like my girlfriend to answer first.
No.
Why not?
I've never had any significant reason to believe in one. And so, everybody just returns to the earth and becomes something else, like a tree or something.
Do you think there's any crossover at all between like the spirit in us right now and the spirit in that tree, or is it purely organic and biological?
No, it's just organic and biological.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Let's talk about the spirit proposition for a second. Do you think there is actually a spirit outside of our consciousness? No.
I mean, sometimes I feel that way, but today I'm not feeling particularly that way.
Right. And what do you think of all of these claims by different religions of afterlives or different gods? And do you think they're just interesting stories, or do you think there's something to it?
I feel like if that's what they need to think to be happy, then that's fine with them, as long as they don't impose their craziness on me.
Right. So, but what about, so if they're not imposing it on you, what about, for instance, say in Saudi Arabia, how they can just, behead homosexuals in the street?
I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
If they're imposing it on someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Imposing it on me, imposing it on anyone.
I think you're asking lots of really easy questions here with really expected answers, is what I think.
Well, so this is the start of it. Now, just speaking a little more on the religion front, should there be laws put in place that protect children from being indoctrinated into a certain religion?
It's a much harder question.
That is a much harder question. I mean, I grew up in a family that encouraged me to go and seek out anything I thought was interesting and experience it and try it and see if that was, what I felt was real belief.
Quick interruption. Are you getting any feedback from us? Because we're getting feedback from you, and I don't want that to taint your podcast.
It actually all sounds perfect on my end.
All right. That's okay. I'm going to turn down our mic a little bit because I would hate to taint our entire contribution here. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please.
It's all good.
Yeah, so my parents were very encouraging of both me and my brother to go out and experience any sort of church or synagogue or mosque or any religion we thought was interesting at all, and to just experience it. And if that was what we felt like was a good belief, they encouraged that in us. And I feel like that would be a way better society if everyone had their own religions, but children were encouraged to explore and find what felt comfortable to them, the way that I did. I feel like everyone would be way better off instead of children being forced into beliefs, and then maybe they'll get tired of it and leave. Maybe later they'll find it again and be happy like my cousin did, or maybe being shoved into one box for too long will make them hate everything that they've ever been taught as a child, as other people have. So I think that having the experience of being able to go out and explore all of these religions on your own, even in especially in a young and very, I want to say receptive, is not the word I'm looking for, but
influenceable, malleable.
Yeah, age, is really a great thing, because when you're young, they want to teach you and they want to inform you, so they'll tell you all the things that you need to know, and you can really form your own opinions even, as a child, as to what you feel is comfortable for you.
Right. So you're basically, what you're saying is that allow the child to grow up unindoctrinated, allow them to follow their interests where they lead them, and this should, the end result, the net result in this should probably improve humanity's well-being if everyone was to kind of prescribe this kind of parenting.
Yeah, I feel like that everyone would be way better off,
Can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
I'd argue that if you followed any line of beliefs, regardless of what they might be, that would serve humanity's well-being. If everybody was Christian, that would probably help humanity's well-being a lot. If everybody was Muslim, or if everybody was atheist, even if it was all lies, it wouldn't matter. The lack of conflict alone would allow everybody to kind of move towards the same goal.
I would contest that, because part of human nature is actually homosexuality, and the two major religions on this planet are anti-homosexuality in the doctrine, and these are written into the tenets of the Quran and the Bible. So I think there's going to be a conflict there. I think some ideologies look to hinder some naturalistic components of what it means to be human, and I think it's best that we find the best ideology, or at least the best structure, and I call it skepticism. Basically, start with a foundation of skepticism, and that leads to the best results. But don't you agree that if the world was to all of a sudden adopt Islam, let's say, as the leading ideology, wouldn't that be dangerous for those who were happen to be born homosexual?
I think that the point that I was trying to make is that a population united can accomplish more at less cost than the diverse population we have now. Mind you, I too am an atheist and have no belief in an afterlife of any sort. I'm purely playing devil's advocate here. But you said something along the lines of like, do you think if the rest of the world felt the same way you do about raising children, that it would benefit humanity? I would argue that like if the rest of the world felt the way that a Christian does or a Muslim does about homosexuality, like, yeah, okay, if I believed in homosexuality and I was gay, then I would simply understand that I wasn't meant to procreate and that I am a sin in the eyes of God. But I still believe in Islam, and I still am going to work towards the same goals, and thus more would be achieved.
Right. So I think the issue, if it was something like a Christianity or an Islam, that the fact that we would have homosexuals feeling like they weren't equal to others under those religious doctrines, I think that's where the conflict would come up. But I do agree with you that a united humanity can produce way more than a humanity that's wasting so many resources on fighting one another ideologically or even physically.
Yeah, I would agree that a population united around the idea of increasing the abilities of humanity would be more productive and successful than a society universally grouped around any given single prescribed religion. But you mentioned like humanity earlier. You mentioned the human condition. You mentioned like homosexuality is a part of being human. Like also freedom of choice in regards to spirituality is an aspect of humanity. So like if people choose to subscribe to various written religions, to written doctrine, like who are we to judge them? I think.
Well, I think we need to move closer to truth, because once we start the more we dabble in the truth of reality, the better the results are. And science has proven this to be the case. When we move closer to understanding the actual evidence and what reality is, we can actually derive great things from reality. And that's not to say that there isn't a place for art, where art is not the pursuit of truth. Art just is whatever. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I use art on the other half of my spectrum as my way to connect to this. Some people call it spirituality, but I just call it creativity. Because I don't know, when someone says spirituality, I don't know what they mean by that. Usually when they try to describe it, they start talking about like something that we have no evidence for that actually exists. They don't talk about anything like within the mind necessarily. They talk about like something to do with like a soul or something like that.
Have you ever taken psychedelics?
No, I haven't, but someone who knows a lot about it, someone who I worked with a lot, Sam Harris, I've talked to him in great length about his experiences, but I've never myself, knowingly.
So it is purely an ineffable thing. You can't describe it. Words won't do it justice. I'm sure Sam Harris has said such words to you before. You seem, you strike me as a young Richard Dawkins. You strike me as this kind of like, like you're looking to be. How old are you? I'm guessing 23, 24.
I'm 31.
You're 31.
I have a young face.
Well, you look fucking amazing, and your
Thank
head
you.
of hair is fantastic.
Thank you.
So you sound to me like you're urging to become like kind of like a skeptical view, man of science, a Richard Dawkins, the next Richard Dawkins, but more philosophical in nature. Like Richard Dawkins is I always feel like he's like a extremely critical scientist in a way that like he doesn't make rational arguments, though he does. He also makes like scientific arguments.
Sure.
Whereas what you're doing here is very philosophical in nature. So
Right.
With that in mind, I highly encourage you to do psychedelics. Trust your source and have someone else try them first. But I think it will give you an experience that you would never be able to perceive otherwise. With that said, I kind of agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. So the thing on the experience, I totally am open and agree that experiences, especially derived from like a psychedelic, they can be something that I could never imagine, right? I could never tend to even understand necessarily what that would be like. But I don't think that when people are delving into psychedelics that they're tapping into anything that's outside their own mind.
I'm not even going to argue with you because it's ineffable. There's no reason for me to try, because until you've experienced like seeing the oneness of all things, whether it is chemically induced or not, whether it's true or not, until you felt it, whether it's true or not, there's no reason to argue about it. It's just, I don't think that anything I experienced while on psychedelics was real. I don't think that for even a second. It is purely a fantasy.
Right.
However, I still felt it to my core. I was one with every other atom in the universe. Like,
right. And it probably the perspective. One thing that Sam has told me, and others who have done this that I've spoke to on the podcast before, that in order to just be able to change your perspective is impossible because of the way that our minds work and how our chemistry works. We're pleasure-driven beings, and all we care about is pleasure. But when someone does a psychedelic, it allows you to actually do that, and that's something I'm interested in trying, and I'm probably going to do it live on the podcast one day. So.
Well, I wouldn't do it live. You should be in a fun setting where you can let loose and express the crazy shit that's going to come out of your mouth.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you for doing what you're doing. I think you're doing a good thing for the world.
Great. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Take care, sir.
There is no evidence that we consciously or unconsciously continue living after death. There is no evidence that any of the religious claims about heaven or reincarnation are true. We will hear fantastical stories presented as evidence that seem extraordinary to the non-skeptical mind, but in almost every case, a rational, ordinary explanation is within arm's reach. Should there be laws written into legislation that penalize parents for indoctrinating their child in any way? I say yes. That isn't to say that teaching should be prohibited, unless it's causing the child measurable harm, but indoctrination is another game altogether. It is a systematic kidnapping of the mind that is very hard to undo due to the cruel nature that is used to plant the seed. The more conversations I have with people who live a relatively normal life, the more I'm starting to realize just how important seemingly simple conversations are and how much they can affect belief systems. In every conversation I've had, there has been a change in belief regarding something important. The snowball effect to paying skepticism forward will yield the greatest gifts to humanity. This has been the Pangburn Podcast. Let art and science inspire.